Scott, have you been listening?
Surfing bird?
Do you know what the word is?
Bird is the word.
Bird is the word.
Not grease.
You know what that song was from?
Was that from the HBO special?
That was from Back to the Beach.
Oh,
remember we talked about that the other day?
That was the final movie of somebody. I forget who.
Probably several people. Yeah, I forget who we named on the episode. It was a pretty shitty movie, and I think it had a lot of D-listers, but it also had Paul Reubens. It had Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
Little cameo from Pee Wee Herman, and I remember being so excited because Pee Wee had only done Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and then they had, Pee Wee's Playhouse, and then all of a sudden he was in this little fucking movie, and I went to see it because of Pee Wee Herman.
In the theater?
I went to see it in the drive-in.
Wow, and this was like 1991, right?
I think so. Late 80s, early 90s. It was still that time.
Okay.
Yeah. So how about it, man? Pee Wee Herman, Paul Reubens, passed away.
Yeah. This one hit hard, man. This is a sad one.
Me too. Me too. We're jumping right into our Dead Celebrity of the Week segment.
We fucked up the format already, dude.
we fucked it all up. We talked about this before the show. All right, we'll talk about this and then this and then this, and I fucked it all up. I can't help it. I'm too emotional about Pee Wee. Yeah, you're right. This one was a heavy duty one. When Eddie Van Halen died, I went, oh, that's a big deal. Like that really spanked me. Like that, he's a big figure. Now that Pee Wee Herman is dead, I'm like, well, shit, that's another big figure in my life. I saw everything this guy did. I don't even think I realized how huge a fan I was until he's gone.
I know. As a kid, I didn't realize that Pee Wee Herman wasn't a real person. Like I couldn't comprehend that he was a character of Paul Reubens. It didn't make any sense to me.
Mr. Herman.
I remember when the movie was first coming out, the Big Adventure movie, MTV was doing a story on it. That's how I learned about Pee Wee Herman. I was fascinated by this MTV story.
Wow.
I was like, who is this weird fucking guy? And they're like, this guy's got a movie. But I'm with you. Yeah, I thought it was the guy. I thought this guy Pee Wee was really, that's him. That's how he acted all day long. I never, in my little kid brain, thought that this was an act.
Well, he kept it up for a decade or decades. Like he would only be interviewed as Pee Wee. He was always in character. It was such a avant-garde installation art type thing he was doing with this character, and it was huge.
Well, we're going to talk more about Pee Wee and lots of other things today on Too Much CGI. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Bill, here as always with Mr. Scott. How are you doing? We got to say it the way we always say it. It's like OCD. If I don't say it that way,
it'll be a bad show. The world's going to end. How am I doing? I'm not doing as well as I usually am. Definitely in mourning. R.I.P. Pee Wee.
You know who else is really upset about this?
Who's that?
Sinead O'Connor. Her coverage was cut short.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. It lasted, 3 days?
Pretty much.
Damn.
Yeah, 2 dead celebrities in a week. Paul Reubens died of cancer. I actually don't know what killed. See how fucking horrible I am? I've already forgotten her name. Sinead O'Connor. I don't know what she died of.
Yeah, they really didn't say. They did say about Paul Reubens, had cancer for a long time, didn't make it public. It was not a well-known thing. Sinead O'Connor, the only thing I read was, well, she struggled with depression and addiction in the past. So that kind of shades it towards this may not have been natural kind of thing.
Oh, man, see, that's one of those things. You read the headline, it could go either way. She could have been clean and sober for the last 30 years, but that headline, kind of leads you, in the wrong direction. Or even if it's not the headline, it's like that first mini paragraph.
It's suggesting that it was,
It's suspicious. It's peculiar.
We've talked about it. I hate the way they write now in the internets, in the newspaper. Are there still newspapers?
You know what? I take it back. I don't know what she died of either. I don't want to perpetrate bullshit media things. But, yeah, they're certainly slanting towards that way. But I don't know. They didn't say.
Well, we like to make up shit on this show. So if you want to put a rumor out there.
I don't want to be next week's fuck-uppery. I don't need to apologize to the dead.
Podcast states Sinead O'Connor died of gonorrhea. See what kind of press we can get. I was watching a video right before we jumped on here. Again, it's the internet. It's all bullshit. It's all true and not true at the same time. It's amazing. The world is amazing. But this video was showing a cameo that Paul Reubens had just done. So cameo is that website. You go to cameo.com and you have a bunch of celebrities on the roster, and you pick the celebrity that you want to give a message to you or your friend for his birthday. And the prices really range, and it's usually a lot of D-list celebrities, but I haven't been on there lately, but Paul Reubens is on there. He probably charges anywhere from $100 to $500 a communication. So this video that I saw must have been somebody who got it and then put it online, because the little caption underneath says he died 5 hours after this cameo.
Oh, wow.
So that's creepy.
That is weird.
He looks old. He looks tired, but he's being funny. He really had a lot of character, and he had a lot of conversation in this little cameo that was uploaded to YouTube.
I think he was a really decent human being. I mean, I know that and we'll get into some of the scandals and stuff that he got embroiled in, but I think he was a good dude. I think he really meant well. I don't think he had any kind of malicious bone in his entire body. I think he got pulled into some situations and some hairy shit, but I truly believe he was a good guy. I know we talked, and I don't want to jump into other segments, but we talked before about Adam the Woo and how Adam the Woo goes to movie sets and things like that, or movie filming locations. In memoriam to Paul Reubens' passing, he actually was out in California. He actually went to the house from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and he was actually talking about in that video how he and his friend Justin Scard, who also has Random Land YouTube channel, they did probably 10 years ago a full tour of all the different movie filming locations, the dinosaurs, all the places out in California. And Paul Reubens actually replied and commented on the YouTube video. He was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible. You did this. It's such a great walk down memory lane." And he was like, "Oh, by the way, you missed one." And just kidding, just razzing you, I think it said. So like even just small stuff like that. Like he was like very fan friendly, very appreciative towards people that appreciated his act and like his art. And I think he was just a real genuine guy.
That's cool, because he went away for a while. Like he really vanished for a while. I went to that house in California recently.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in South Pasadena, just a few streets away from George McFly's house and Lorraine McFly's house.
When I ever see the front of that house, all I can think of is him and Francis. Him and Francis. I know you are, but what am I?
I know you are, but what am I?
Well, you make me. I don't make monkeys. I train them.
You're good. You got the whole thing.
I've been watching a lot of Pee-wee.
I just remember the house. They changed the color of it, and the people that owned it didn't keep it up very well. It was kind of ratty.
Well, when Woo was there yesterday, there was a lot of flowers and things placed out front, and also his star on the Walk of Fame has the wreath on the easel, and a lot of flowers, a lot of messages, things like that. So definitely going to be missed. That's for sure.
Bye!
Well, this is going to be a Pee-wee heavy episode, obviously. So why don't we move into some other segments before we get back to the Pee-wee?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because the main segment we're going to talk about today is Pee-wee Herman. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. So you've brought a bunch of notes about Pee-wee, and I'm going to cover some things about him that are not Pee-wee related, but more Paul Reubens related.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little book report on Paul Reubens / Pee-wee Herman. So I started watching that new Marvel show. I know you're not that big into Marvel, but this was interesting. So this was Secret Invasion. Have you seen the trailer for this at all?
Yeah, this is a real Nick Fury heavy show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring out that Marvel has decided that there are 3 different kind of worlds that they can play in, right? There's the magic world, there's the cosmic world, and there's the grounded world. Like the Avengers 1 was grounded. It was in New York. Avengers 3 was now in outer space.
But to like follow your thoughts here, like the magic world would be like Scarlet Witch, and like the cosmic world would be, would the magic world also be Doctor Strange, or would he fall into more like the cosmic? Okay, so he's more magic too. All right, so cosmic, you're thinking like Captain Marvel and shit like Guardians of the Galaxy, stuff like that?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Asgard, all the shit with Thor, he's outer space, but also grounded sometimes. He kind of bridges the worlds, I guess.
Yeah, there are a few characters that sort of play in both settings, and some that just look really odd in other settings, but that's besides the point. So, but they do some shows that are grounded in reality. And I like those shows, right? So I'm saying shows, but I mean movies too.
Sure.
Civil War. There was Captain America, Winter Soldier. So some of these are really great movies and are grounded in reality. They had another one called the Falcon and Winter Soldier. So this one was a return to that.
I like that.
And I wanted to see it work. And I don't know if you've heard the reviews.
And you saying that sounds like it did not.
If you've read the reviews, you would have read that this is another turkey for Marvel. And I just, watching the whole thing, it was like, this one has Samuel L. Jackson. It's got, the guy that plays Rhodey in it is awesome. It's
Don Cheadle.
Yeah, Don Cheadle. Wow, I almost said the original actor's name.
Terrence Howard.
Yeah. They're so good with names. It's incredible. So Don Cheadle and I almost said Lawrence Fishburne. I can't believe what's going on with me today.
Well, Lawrence Fishburne's coming up. Lawrence Fishburne's coming up for Pee-wee's Playhouse.
You remember that time? It was viral on YouTube for a while. The guy is interviewing Samuel L. Jackson, and he goes, how do you feel about having a great commercial at the Super Bowl? And he goes, what? What are you talking about? I didn't have a Super Bowl commercial. And he goes, Fishburne. You're talking about Lawrence Fishburne, aren't you? He's like, you think I'm Lawrence Fishburne? I just pulled that fucking move.
Did you get a lot of reaction to that Super Bowl commercial?
What Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, you know what? I've been my mistake.
See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter.
Right.
I'm not Lawrence Fishburne.
That's my fault. I know that. That was my fault. My mistake. You know what?
We don't all look alike.
Anyway, there's there's some scenes in this that are just so good. Some of the best Marvel stuff I've ever seen was in this show.
Wow.
The scene with Don Cheadle and Samuel L. Jackson, there's some dialogue between those two that is just edge of your seat. Holy fuck. And then there's parts where this giant battle that's supposed to take place, I think in London or wherever they were, in Russia, looked like it was shot in a studio. And that's what I think the problem is with these shows. And I'm starting to get very concerned that this is not a trend that's going to change because of the cost of these shows. And this was already an expensive show. They threw millions into this show, more than they usually do. And it still turned out bad. I'm going to jump ahead and go right to a news item that we have later.
We are off the fucking rails today, people.
We're doing everything differently.
This is the most ADHD show we've ever had. We have a format, I swear we do.
This is your first time listening. Turn this off and try the last episode. That was a little bit more on the rails. The article discusses an interview with Ali Salim, the director of Marvel Studios' Secret Invasion, where he appeared to admit that the series was being assembled in the editing room even as new episodes were being released every week. Salim described the process as an evolution with constant changes and adaptations to the story. He mentioned moments of improvisation between actors and how the story was still being found even as the first episode had aired. This is a 6-episode series.
Yeah.
He revealed that later episodes and the entire story of the series were being put together as they released the first episode, emphasizing Marvel's commitment to crafting the best story possible.
Let me ask you, though. It sounds like the problem you had with this was too much CGI for the London fight scene. There were good scenes in there that were good story, but where did this fall short for you? Was it the fight scene in London or Russia, or what part of this did you struggle with that had this fall short on your expectations?
The whole pacing.
Just everything?
Yeah, The whole thing. It's just not a great story. You kind of get thrown off. You're following this one plot line. You're kind of into it. You're like, that's cool. And then all of a sudden, they throw something stupid at you. Now it definitely makes sense. Yeah, it sounds like week 3 was a lot different than week 1. What a turn. But they're making it up as they go.
Yeah.
And this guy's saying, he says here, Salim also discussed his role in directing rather than making major story decisions, deferring specific questions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe to others like Kevin Feige. So imagine going to work every day. You don't have a working script, or if you do, it's one you know you're going to throw away. That's totally stressful. Like, now I got to go and make this entire script up as we go. Basically, I got to wait for Kevin to call me and say, okay, quickly put this guy into the movie and have him do this. It's like, what? That's not movie making. That's chaos.
Exactly. I know Kevin Feige is, certainly lauded as this excellent, amazing storyteller that had this far-reaching grasp over top of all television and all movies and brought this cohesiveness to the Marvel MCU. And do you think now that things aren't going that great, that he's just holding on tighter than ever, trying to get this shit back on the rails?
I think he was spread too thin. And there was even talk about moving him into Star Wars.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, I think they just said, let's amp up the output. Kevin, you're the brain of this whole franchise. You know what's going to happen next because we're giving you, Disney, are giving you the ability to do that. We trust you. And now we're going to spread you too thin.
I guess my question is, was he that good? Did he get lucky when superhero movies got hot? Is he the reason superhero movies got hot? Or are we just now seeing the real Kevin Feige and he's but a mere mortal?
Good question. And I think that's why I'm getting upset. The first 10 years were amazing.
Yeah.
And that was Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
And these last 5 years or whatever have been dog shit. So as a huge fan, I'm pissed off. You guys just kind of got lazy or something happened. And we know some of the things that happened. We know the old Disney CEO was suddenly like, hey, let's push more volume, and quality went out the window. That's probably the major thing.
I guess my thought line is you can't take credit for the first 10 years and not take blame for the last 5.
Yeah, I guess I blame him. You're the boss, Kevin. You let this happen.
Yeah.
Get your shit back together, because I can't wait to go back and start becoming a Marvel fan again.
I'll tell you what, speaking of being a Marvel fan, this isn't something I've, quote, been watching, but the new Loki trailer, I'm excited for the new Loki trailer. That looks fucking good.
Yeah, that does look good. I'm tired of multiverse.
Yeah.
I don't think we're done yet, because we still have an Avengers movie about the multiverse, and we have Deadpool coming out about the multiverse. So we got a lot more multiverse to go, unfortunately. Well, I happen to know what you're watching, and the reason I went first is because you're watching Pee-wee.
I am watching a lot of Pee-wee. I also took in a flick this past weekend.
Oh, what'd you see?
Took the family to go see The Haunted Mansion.
With Eddie Murphy.
No, with Tiffany Haddish and Danny DeVito's in there. Owen Wilson's in there. Wow.
Ghost.
I forget who else is in there. The chick from Halloween.
Jamie Lee Curtis?
Jamie Lee Curtis is in there. She plays Madame Leota. She's good.
My favorite.
It was a good movie. It was very enjoyable. I saw it. I enjoyed it for the hour and a half that it ran. It didn't change my life. I enjoyed it more than the Super Mario movie that I watched this past summer. I give it a solid B. It does not deserve the 49% it's getting on Rotten Tomatoes, I'll tell you that.
Big movies are really getting shit on. I just read an article from Levi, what's his name? Plays Shazam.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whatever his name is. And he's like, I don't know why Shazam 2 got shit on so hard by critics. It's not that bad a movie. Like, you guys are just being cruel. And I keep hearing about a lot of like Rotten Tomato bombing, review bombing, like just going and trashing things. But, everybody has been saying the movies have been bad. These movies have been terrible. And then all of a sudden, Barbie and Oppenheimer come out. And now all the articles are like, hey, we're back. Hollywood is back. The cinema is back. At the same time, Hollywood looks like it's crumbling because the actors and the writers and the studios can't get along.
Yeah, it's a weird time.
Everything is up in the air.
It is a shitty time because there is a lot of just negativity out there and people just shitting on these movies. I do agree to that to some extent, but I also believe that these movies are not living up to the expectations that trailers and just hype is just building them up to be. Like, I don't care if you spent $250 million. Everything's about, and maybe it's just because I'm doing this podcast with you now that I pay more attention to the dollars and cents, but every story I'm reading now is just like, oh, this movie cost $250 million to make and it only made $40 million in projections for its first weekend. I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like, let it come out and do its thing. It's going to do what it's going to do. So I know, and this is going to sound hypocritical because we spend so much time talking about the best grossing movies and the worst grossing movies and biggest box office bombs and yada, yada, yada. But honest to God, I know people are shitting on the Haunted Mansion right now. I say this, if you're a Disney fan, if you like the Haunted Mansion, if you like Danny DeVito, if you like Owen Wilson, if you like Tiffany Haddish, they're all good in this role, or in these roles in this movie. It's definitely worth checking out.
It's strange that they think that that's going to be a good movie, right? They made the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
They made this one before. They're making movies on rides, and they think that'll work. Well, the Pirates did, so of course.
It did the Jungle Cruise in there with Dwayne The Rock Johnson too.
Jungle Cruise, right? What other rides are left?
Well, they can do the Tiki Room, Space Mountain.
The Tim Burton Dumbo sequel will be all about multiple Dumbos that go up and down with riders on their backs.
Oh, man.
Mr. Toad needs his movie. How about that? Another Mr. Toad reference in the show. I found a way to get a second reference in.
Hot damn. But you're right. In addition to me going to the movies and watching The Haunted Mansion, I've been watching a lot of Pee Wee Herman. I did watch his 1981 special that HBO aired. The very first time anybody really even saw Pee Wee Herman on stage. And I also watched Big Top Pee Wee. And I watched something that I didn't even know existed, Bill. You know, he made a movie with Judd Apatow in 2016 called Pee Wee's Big Holiday.
I do not know about that.
Straight to Netflix. I watched it last night. And it was not as good as the original. You'll notice I didn't watch Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I've watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure so many times. I just didn't go back to it. I saw these other two things and I was like, I'm very much less familiar with these other two things. And the 81 show I saw bits and pieces of before. I knew it was basically Pee Wee's Playhouse before there was a Pee Wee's Playhouse. And I always heard that it was more adult and I didn't know how. Well, I watched the whole thing through. It's actually streaming on Max right now, and it's worth checking out.
The stand-up show.
Yeah, it was more like a stage show.
I kind of remember it. I remember the videotape at the video store. It was like, this is the HBO version of the show. And I was like, that must be the naughtier version. And I remember getting it and going, I don't think it's naughtier. Like, I don't remember thinking it was much naughtier, but it was an adult program.
Now, the only thing that they did in that, like, it was a little more off color that he wouldn't do for a kid's show. Like, he put him and his buddy Hammy put mirrors on their shoes so they can look up Hammy's sister's dress. And he hypnotized a woman to come on stage and take her dress off. So it was like things like that. They were a little bit more off color that he wasn't going to do on a Saturday morning kid show on CBS. But
naughty, right?
A little bit more naughty. And it was a little bit more innuendo and things like that. But it was never anything. He never swore. It was never anything to that level. But it was certainly more pushing the envelope than, the character you saw on Saturday mornings.
Pee Wee's Big Holiday, 2016. I did see this. Now that I'm looking at it, I do remember. Well, first off, 2016, I actually thought this thing came out a couple of years ago. Goes to show how much fucking time flies.
7 years ago.
Yeah. I remember the new Pee Wee Herman thing, and it came and went, and it was okay. I don't think I remember Judd Apatow had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Maybe at the time I saw it, I didn't know who Judd Apatow was.
Possible.
Yeah, I remember this being nice, but it was like just a throwback to the old days. It didn't match up at all to Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
No, it had the classic Pee Wee formula where he goes on an adventure, he meets people along the way, very naively benefits their lives, and then when he gets in trouble, they all come back and save him at the end, and it's a heartwarming tale where being kind will have its payoff in the end, and people like a nice person and be polite, and that was always kind of the moral message that Pee Wee had for kids.
Are you kidding?
What did you think of Big Top Pee Wee?
That was weird because the problem with Big Top Pee Wee, I don't know why they threw him into a love triangle. Like, in part one, he wants nothing to do with Dottie. He wants nothing to do with the dating scene. And then Big Top Pee Wee, he's having lunch with Winnie, his fiance, and he's like throwing himself on top of her in front of the school kids. She throws him off, and it's like great physical comedy, but like it really didn't feel to be the character of Pee Wee Herman at certain spots.
No!
And even things like, it was kind of funny in the beginning where like he had like a picnic table set up where all the farm animals like ate breakfast together. But like he went through, I thought you would have had, so like there's a whole like Rube Goldberg machine in the first one where he like makes like his Mr. T cereal, Mr. Breakfast, and it was all like the egg rolls down and cracks in the pan. And it was all automated and all that. And that was cool. And he didn't have anything like that set up to feed the animals at the zoo. And I was like, well, this is off character.
Do you think this was meant to be a sequel? Or was it just like, hey, this is another zany adventure from another, from this guy who you're not supposed to really tie into the other movie? Kind of like how the Three Stooges always were.
Yeah, I guess it was probably more of that. The funny thing is, I think Big Top Pee Wee was more like Paul Reubens' real life. So he grew up in Sarasota, Florida. And Sarasota, Florida is where Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, like the performers, they would live there all winter long. So like his neighbors were like the Flying Walendas and like the trapeze artists and the strongman and sideshow characters. And these people were like the people he grew up with. So like when he had in this movie, all these people moved to his farm and he's like hosting the circus at his farm. That was probably more like what his real life was growing up as Paul Reubens, not Pee Wee Herman.
It says here, Big Top Pee Wee was directed by the guy that directed Grease. You win one, you lose one.
Well, my mistake.
So what else can you tell us about PW?
What else can I tell us about Pee-wee? 81 was really where Pee-wee came onto the scene with that HBO special. And the HBO special, it was really, he did 5 sold-out months at LA's Roxy Theater, and HBO just happened to come in and film one and made that the special. He was selling out live stage show audiences, and that's where Pee-wee came from. So he actually was a member of the Groundlings, which is an improv group out in LA, and a lot of the people that were in the show, Phil Hartman and others, they were members of the Groundlings, and that's where he created this character. He created a number of different characters, but Pee-wee was the one that just caught on like wildfire. And then he started, like I said, for decades, he would not do interviews. He would not do media. Everything was in the character of Pee-wee Herman. More people know Pee-wee Herman than know Paul Reubens.
Well, he was counting on that when he went into that adult theater.
Well, you're jumping ahead now. 85, Pee-wee's Big Adventure comes out. And this is a movie that Paul Reubens wrote himself. Not to go back to talking about money, but he filmed the whole thing for $7 million, and it grossed $45 million. So it was a successful movie. And it was, again, I don't know who's still listening that doesn't know who Pee-wee Herman is, but the character was just this boy of indiscriminate age. They never really say how old he's supposed to be. He always says, I'm the luckiest boy in the world and things like that. And just very naive. But then he also has like this smart aleck. Even the way he talks is just so funny. He's just like, hi, I'm Pee-wee Herman. What's your name? Like to the audience, like the audience could never answer, but it was just like ask questions like kids ask and like, why, like just annoying shit that kids would do. But it was just this innocent, goofy character that he just played so fucking well. And it really just went back to like this age of innocence where it was like almost like Howdy Doody or like shows from the 1950s and the 1960s, like shows that had a moral and things like that. And that's kind of what Pee-wee's Playhouse then began. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was by far the biggest, most successful thing that he did.
I wonder if people really attribute, because I think they should, the work of, Tim Burton and Danny Elfman in that movie, right? Because I think it was Tim Burton's first movie. And he was quirky and he's weird. And Danny Elfman put together a crazy ass score. And it made that whole first movie seem, it's a kid's movie, but it's not. It's kind of a dark, creepy movie at times. You know, it's almost like that ventriloquist puppet comes to life creepy kind of stuff sometimes. His kid show wasn't really put that way, but he had creepy things coming to life. I mean, there was Terry the Pterodactyl. That was goddamn creepy.
What?
Terry was lovable. But like this was definitely a spooky movie. And I don't think it could have been done without Tim Burton. And I think when he went to do Big Top Pee-wee, it didn't work because it wasn't Tim Burton. I don't know if Danny Elfman did the music, but if it wasn't those three, I don't think you have the same Pee-wee Herman launch pad that he got.
Sure. They all help create that universe and that world. And you're absolutely right. When Pee-wee in Big Adventure, when he would go into those dream scenes and he sees like the clown doctors running down the hallways, and it was classic Tim Burton because the doorways, there was no such thing as a right angle. Like everything was like off kilter. And then the regular looking doctor comes in, he pulls down the surgical mask and he has like the clown mouth painted on him. And I was like, that freaked me out as a kid. Like that and Large Marge scared the shit out of me. But like even Large Marge, like the claymation that they cut away to, and when they pulled the body from the wreckage, it looked like this. Like the bulgy eyes and the tongue. Like that's all classic Tim Burton shit. But you're right. The score had just as much to do with it. And really music in general had a lot to do with Pee-wee's career. Like even on that 1981 stage show, he did like musical tributes. He did a musical tribute to Sly and the Family Stone.
I also wonder sometimes when you leave something like the Groundlings, or is it the Groundlings or Groundlings?
Groundlings.
Okay. And you got other ones. You got the one up in Canada, right? SCTV, wasn't that a show that came from
SCTV, Second City from Chicago?
Yeah, there's so many of them. It's like, oh, I did this before I came to Saturday Night Live. There's all these little
National
underground
Lampoons.
Did they ever get pissed They being like the companies, you know? Did the groundlings ever go, yo, he just took the best character and made $1 bazillion and we're stuck with nothing?
Like the troops? Well, he created it. So I think that's like the goal for everybody in the groundlings is to, because that probably brought more attention to the groundlings as an improv troupe than anything they could have ever done alone.
Yeah, I know. But it's like,
A high
hey,
tide raises all ships, right? I hear what you're saying, but I think they all probably benefited from it.
you wrote this character on our dime. Yeah, I don't know how those things work. I mean, maybe the groundlings weren't hired by the studio or the theater, rather. Maybe the groundlings was just a rock band type of thing and they just called themselves that. They just kind of, I don't know how all that worked.
I don't know.
But I know that creative people can be very competitive. And when you see people that kind of leave a thing like the groundlings and they stick together, I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, 1987, he backed up Big Adventure with Big Top Pee-wee, as we discussed here. It was not a critical success. It was not a fan success. I think it's getting like maybe a 5 on IMDb. Like it's middle of the pack at best. It's watchable, but all the lovable things and characteristics you see in Big Adventure, you do not see in Big Top Pee-wee.
Is there any bicycle references?
Please save your questions until I'm through.
None.
Yeah.
None. And then to get up to 2016's Pee-wee's Big Holiday here, the Judd Apatow one that we talked about, the whole thing is Joe Manganiello, the guy that was on True Blood, and he was in, I don't even know what else he said, but he plays himself. He played the werewolf guy in True Blood. That's where I knew him from. He's married to Sofia Vergara.
All right, I know her. I'm going to pretend I don't know him because I know my wife has a huge crush on him, but I'm going to pretend I don't know who he is.
Okay. Well, he's in there and he plays himself. Pee-wee didn't know who he was, but he invites Pee-wee to his birthday in New York, and he lives in Fairville, which is, and he does kind of the same shit, the Rube Goldberg stuff in the morning. You get ready, and he hops in his car, and he like all kinds of shit. Rides a skateboard, arrives to work. He's like a short order chef. Kind of reminded me of SpongeBob a little bit, like working at like a diner, like making eggs and omelets and shit like that. But he's doing it in his classic Pee-wee style. But the story is that he never left Fairville, which completely writes out Big Adventure because, of course, he left Fairville. And he talks about, well, one time I left Fairville and I wound up getting a metal plate in my head. And is that talking about how he got knocked unconscious at the end of Big Adventure? Like, it really didn't tie in well.
Not at all. And of all the things that tie it in with,
right?
I didn't even know the name of the town that he grew up in. I've watched that movie 1 million times.
Same.
You know what? I like that reference to SpongeBob. That's kind of right. He's kind of like SpongeBob.
They say that SpongeBob creators were very much influenced by Paul Reubens.
Yeah, I see it.
Listen, I'll prove it.
Even the voice, kind of. I mean, it's right there. But in addition to all these movies, he had, as we mentioned a couple times here, the TV show, Pee-wee's Playhouse. CBS was paying him $325,000 per episode, which at the time they were trying to get back into the kids market, Saturday morning market. But $325K per episode, that was like prime time money at the time. And this ran from 86 to 1990. And it was a big deal. He had complete creative control over it. CBS very rarely asked him to change anything. He was very respectful. He never wanted to do anything that would put Pee-wee in poor light in the children's eyes or expose children to things. Paul Reubens was a smoker, apparently, and he was very insistent that, one, he would never be shown as Paul Reubens on camera. That was part of the reason why he did the whole thing as Pee-wee all the time, to keep the imagery going for the kids. But he also never wanted to be photographed with a cigarette. Also, there were a few sponsorships that he turned down for like sugary cereals and shit like that. Like, he was really all about being a good image for children.
Did he have a cereal? I kind of remember a Pee-wee cereal.
Yeah, it was like a granola cereal that like wasn't on the shelves very long, apparently. I found in doing research. I don't remember there being a Pee-wee cereal, but there was certainly a lot of Pee-wee merchandise as far as t-shirts and toys and play sets and all kinds of things. Like, Pee-wee was very marketable in that way.
I was just thinking of the Pee-wee Herman show, the cartoon show, the kid show. I can't remember how that show filled 30 minutes. People just pop by. He talked to, a house plant. He talked to a chair. But that was it. I mean, were there plots?
Well, he would always cut away to the King of Cartoons would come in, and the King of Cartoons would show a 2 to 5 minute cartoon. It was always like an old like King cartoon in black and white, and it was always like grainy 1950s stuff you wouldn't see anyplace else. It wasn't created for the Pee-wee show. It was almost like he was a presenter of these cartoon shows that you wouldn't see anyplace else. And then he also had the secret word of the day. And he also had, he always had like the Zombie. He would always cut away to Zombie, and they would do like their chant and their wish of the day or whatever the hell it would be. And then there would always be like a moral of the story. Somebody would come in, and it was always about being fair. And, he always wanted to have a good moral there for the kids.
Today's secret word is...
And then the orgy would start, and the credits would roll, and then tune in next week.
Well, then, scandal. July 26, 1991, allegedly caught jacking it in a Sarasota, Florida X-rated theater while watching Nurse Nancy.
Hello, is Dr. Jinka Janka in?
There's Nancy. Missed that one.
Nurse Nancy did him in.
So I remember this news, and I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, that's despicable. That he got called out in the movie theater full of people jerking off. Like, that was the first
one of 3 people. He was one of 3 people in the theater, and it was a random police raid, they say.
I mean, I figured everybody in the theater was doing that.
Right?
So I was always like, how did they catch him? Like, isn't that what people go to these theaters for?
There was a police sting. And it's funny because Jenna and I were talking about this, my wife, and she was like, what the hell were they expecting to find in there?
So it wasn't a sting on him. They were just stinging that place.
It was that theater, wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. He did offer to make it all go away if he would do a private Pee-wee show as a charity for the police officers and their kids. So that was kind of sketch, and they weren't going for it.
How about pretty please?
Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please.
You know how much this all cost him?
Mm-mm.
Besides the character of Pee-wee for a good decade, it cost him $219 bail, a $50 fine, $85 in court fees, and he had to do 2 public service announcements.
Was one of them on drugs? I remember the
yes.
PSA that he did on drugs.
The PSA was on drugs.
Yeah, I must have humiliated him. Here he is, the big kids host, doing something immoral. I remember that. Every talk show host was picking on him. That was it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see him again until, and maybe this is on your list, but he was in Mystery Men. And I was like, oh, he's back, and he's not Pee-wee. I can't believe it.
My research here was really Pee-wee centric. You have a bigger list of Paul Reubens in general, but yeah, the last time he played Pee-wee. So that happened July 26, 1991. In, I believe, October 91, he did the MTV Video Music Awards. And he came out to thunderous applause, which became a standing ovation when he uttered the line, "Heard any good jokes lately?"
I remember. Yes.
Nothing like fucking owning it and just doubling down and just embracing it, because Hollywood and people that knew him supported him all the way. All the fucking way. CBS, upon news of this, so this happened on July 26th. On July 29th, CBS. Now, the show was already decided to be done in 1990, so this is a year after. CBS decided to pull all merchandise from the shelves, and they stopped airing reruns. They were running reruns in the evening because, to your point, this had as big of an adult audience as it did a kid audience. So 15,000 people petitioned CBS to put the reruns back on, and I don't believe that they did. And that's about when Pee-wee went away for quite a while. More legal things came his way. In 2002, he was charged with possession of child pornography. The charge was dropped. He pled to a misdemeanor obscenity charge. Apparently, he was a collector of fitness and maybe erotica, but nobody was like engaging in sexual acts in these things. Apparently, he bought this stuff in like lots. Like, he would go to like auctions and buy a lot. And they would say, people that sold it to him said that he would have had no idea what was on every single page, every single one of these things. So the charges were dropped, and the charge of child pornography was apparently very much blown out of proportion.
One of the things I discovered, he was a big collector of old kitsch stuff and old pop culture stuff. So it would make sense. He collects old magazines and things like that.
Yeah. And to your earlier point about the Groundlings, I mean, he did help some people get their start in Hollywood. I mentioned Lawrence Fishburne earlier. He played Cowboy Curtis for 6 episodes in the Playhouse. And Phil Hartman, his friend from the Groundlings, played Captain Carl right from that 1981 stage show all the way through the beginning of the Playhouse special. So he did help other people from the Groundlings and just find their start in Hollywood. Miss Yvonne, in fact, still plays Charlie's mom on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Another person that had a lot to do with the Playhouse, Cyndi Lauper. She actually performed the opening theme song to Pee-wee's Playhouse.
I never knew that was her.
Yeah. So the last thing I have here about Pee-wee, aside from the 2016 movie, in 2011, Wee Herman went to Broadway. He did the show on Broadway for, I think it was just shy of a year. Yeah, they actually moved to the Nokia Theater to have an extended runtime, but he was selling out theaters on Broadway. So when Pee-wee came back, he came back big, and there was a resurgence for Pee-wee. And I think that's what led to the 2016 movie, and just people were happy to have him back in their fold. I know you probably have a lot of other Paul Reubens roles and cameos and things like that, but one I have to mention here that's the most important above all others. In 1987, he recorded the voice of RX-24, also known as Rex, who was your pilot on Star Tours. And then in 2021, he came back and re-recorded the voice of RX-24 DJ Rex, who is now the animatronic DJ at Oga's Cantina in Galaxy's Edge.
I didn't know that was him.
That's him.
Well, it looks like we're going to have a smooth flight to Endor, so I'll go ahead and open the cockpit shield.
So yeah, in my research, I come up with a bunch of things that he did. And there was some Star Wars stuff in there, but I didn't read that closely. I didn't know that was him. So the ride, that little robot that flew me around when I was a kid, was Paul Reubens?
That was Paul Reubens. And he also played that character in Star Wars Rebels for one episode. Rex was in there as a character, and he was always the voice of Rex.
That's pretty cool.
If I can tie Paul Reubens to the Star Wars universe, I'm fucking doing it.
What else can you tell us?
That was about the end of my Pee-wee list. And that was all the factual stuff. I mean, my connection to this, like I said, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, 85. I was 5 years old when it came out. This was right around the time my family got our first VCR. So this was one of the movies we rented. And like I said, I remember being scared of Large Marge. I remember being scared of the Clown Doctor. And I mean, the rest of it was just fucking hilarious. Of course, we all learned the Alamo does not have a basement.
Remember when the dinosaurs came to life?
Yeah, the claymation dinosaurs. There was so many good things in there.
Yeah, it was all spooky, circusy. Ugh.
Oh, one other fact I have. Do you know that Pee-wee's Playhouse won 15 Emmy Awards?
For what? Children's show.
Creative writing.
Huh.
That's about all I got about Pee-wee. What do you got? What do you got for me here?
Well, I'll give you a whole bunch of stuff that I learned about the man behind the man-child.
Yeah, the lesser known person.
So some of these are interesting. Some of them are meh. Some of them you said, so I'll skip those. Paul Reubens. Paul Reubens was born on August 27, 1952 in Peekskill, New York. Family background. He is the son of Judy and Milton Rubenfeld. His dad was a auto salesman. His mom was a teacher. Regular people.
His dad was an Air Force ace. He flew for the Israeli Air Force.
Ha ha. Good job, Google. Got that all wrong.
Well, he flew for the United States, and he also flew for the UK, but he was one of the very first fighter pilots for the Israeli Air Force.
What's probably funny is he probably got out of the military, became an auto salesperson, and that's all this fucking Google result gave me. Left out all that awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So it says Reubens, right? Because his name was Rubenfeld. Reubens was derived from the name of his favorite teacher. Do you know he went to Boston University?
Yes, I did for 1 year. And he moved to California.
To go to the Institute of the Arts.
Yep.
And maybe that's how he appeared on The Gong Show in 1977.
Yeah. I actually, in doing my research, I actually saw his Gong Show appearance on YouTube. It's actually out on YouTube. You can find it.
What was it?
It was him and the guy that played the mailman in the stage show singing a song about, they played, it was almost like Two Wild and Crazy Guys, like the Aykroyd and Steve Martin thing, but they were not doing accents, and I forget what one was like desirable, and they had like two titles, like one guy was this and one guy was that. They just sang a song while another guy played piano. They didn't get gonged off though. That's the important thing.
That's awesome. That Gong Show. I was watching some video from the Gong Show the other day. It's at it was a 1977 show, and it had Oingo Boingo on it, like their earlier version of Oingo Boingo, the Knights of the Oingo Boingo. I'm like, shit, they were on the Gong Show too. Remember they had the guy, the unknown comedian, he had the bag on his head?
Yes. Wasn't Jamie Farr, was he the guy that played Klinger on MASH? Was he the host, or was he always one of the judges?
No, he wasn't the host. The host was actually like a secret CIA agent.
What?
There's a whole story with this Gong Show.
Oh, we're going down a path here. Let's bring it back to Pee-wee, or Paul, respectfully.
Got it. So it says here, Pee-wee's Laugh was inspired by a character in Bells Are Ringing, a 1960 musical comedy. Is that interesting? I don't think so, because I don't know the comedy, but I told us anyway. We have to know these things. We have to know. Oh, it actually does say here. Yeah, he won 15 Emmys for the Saturday. He won a Saturday morning Emmy, it says here. I don't think that's right. I don't think they had, quote, Saturday morning Emmys.
No, he won Emmys for the Saturday morning show.
So it says he appeared in over 40 films, including Cheech and Chong's next movie. That's actually one of the first appearances I've ever seen of him.
We talked about that. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sorry.
I'm not sorry.
So what I'd like to do now is go through select cuts from his IMDb. I will start at the bottom. I will work my way up because I found it kind of interesting that in 1968, he was the wedding guest in a movie called The Brotherhood. 1978. Oh, that was 68. 1978, he's in another movie. So he didn't do anything for 10 years. You know, The Brotherhood was probably just a fucking extra. So then in 1978, Things We Did Last Summer. Then he's in Working Stiffs, 2 episodes of 1979. I don't know that show. I wonder what that was. Working Stiffs.
I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, you weren't born. He was the pinball proprietor in Midnight Madness in 1980. Then he did Prey TV. He was a waiter in the Blues Brothers. I don't remember that. Huh.
Yeah.
He was in Cheech and Chong's next movie. He was also in that. He was in the Flintstones comedy show. I don't know what that's all about. He did another Cheech and Chong. He did Nice Dreams. And then 1981, the Pee Wee Herman show. So that's what you were talking about. Or is that the cartoon?
No. That's the special. That's the HBO special.
And then I'll just fly through some things here. Dream On, Mork and Mindy, Twilight Theater, Pandemonium, Madam's Place. Oh, God. Do you remember that with the little puppet? The little puppet old lady?
No.
Oh, look that up. Oh, Meatballs Part 2. That's right. He was in that.
Saw that.
I forgot he was in that. And then he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure in 1985. Yeah, and as you scroll up, there's not much else here. Little cameos here.
So many cartoons. So many cartoons he did.
Nightmare Before Christmas. He was popular for that one.
You mentioned him and Tim Burton, being friendly and kind of getting their start together with it being his first movie. After all of the scandal and things like that, one of the first roles that Paul Reubens played was Chester Cobblepot's father in Batman Returns. And the woman that played Simone played the mother. And then he played, I think, Lock, Shock, and Barrel. They were the 3 trick-or-treaters in Nightmare Before Christmas. He played Locke, and he did the voice for that.
I also read that he went and did the father of the Penguin again in the Gotham TV show, but I didn't watch that.
He did. I watched that. There's only 3 episodes, I think. And I don't know that he was Penguin's father.
Oh, no? I thought he was. Thought I heard that.
He was in the show. I don't recall that he played Penguin's father, but it's been a while.
Reubens once held a private pilot's license. That's cool.
That's wild. Yeah.
Imagine you charter a private jet and Pee-wee's in the fucking cockpit.
Well, are you uptight or what?
You know what his parents did for a living? And I only bring this up because with his kitsch collecting, he collected a lot of lamps. His parents owned a lamp store in Sarasota, and that's what they did for a living.
Again, it says Judy and Milton Rubenfeld, a former auto salesperson and former teacher. So your information and my information are completely at odds with each other. Only one of us could be right. I don't really care which one it is, to be honest.
Can't just make up lies about people.
He appeared in the music video for Weird Al's This Is the Life? I don't know that video. I'll have to look that one up. I don't even know the song. He is involved in charitable activities, including working with children's hospitals. He has an actual love for bicycles. I like that.
That's great. That seems kind of kitschy, like that would be something he'd be into.
Despite his public persona, Reubens is known to be a very private person, rarely discussing his personal life in interviews. The iconic gray suit worn by Pee-wee was designed by Reubens himself.
That's funny.
The dance in Pee-wee's Big Adventure was inspired by the 1961 musical West Side Story.
Really? I could see that. To tie this back to last episode, he did some things with WWF wrestling.
That's right. I read that too. All right. This is my last Reubens fact. This one just made me happy. He has been cited as an influence by actors like Johnny Depp.
Funny story about that. He was going to do a Pee-wee's Playhouse movie. I think he had it written and everything, and he went to Burton to ask him to direct it. Burton said you have to think about it, and he asked Depp to actually play Pee-wee. So he wasn't going to play Pee-wee in this himself. It was going to be like a behind-the-scenes darker side of the Playhouse, and he was actually asked Johnny Depp to play it, and Depp turned him down, I believe.
Is that a true story?
That's what I read on IMDb.
Unbelievable. Wouldn't that be something?
Would have been wild.
That's it. Like you said at the beginning of the show, yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
I don't want any more of these this year.
Well, you mentioned it a few episodes back. I think we're getting to that time where a lot of people we watched in the 80s and growing up, there's going to be a lot more than 2 per week moving forward, unfortunately.
I just don't want to be icons like this.
No!
Yeah, I know. And I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just saying, the way time works and aging works, it's just fucking math. That's science.
Yeah. I don't know. If there's a God out there, I just, leave Tom Hanks alone. Remember, Peter Scolari is still there. Actually, no, I think he's gone too.
To tell a personal story how I found out about this. We were driving home from the shore. The family and I were down at Wildwood this past weekend. And driving home, we discovered that while parked in front of my house, somebody demolished the back of my wife's car while it was parked out front. Pickup truck came up. There's no skid mark. Somebody slammed right into the back of the car. We get out of the car. I read my text messages that I didn't get for the 2.5 hours while I was driving. And I read, Paul Reubens died. And I was like, well, this is even worse. This day keeps getting fucking worse. So here we are.
That guy was probably listening to the radio and they're like, actor Paul Reubens has passed away. The guy go, what? And crashes right into your car.
It's grief-stricken. But yes, we all live in a Pee-wee-less world.
Paging Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman, you have a telephone call at the front desk.
Well, how about we move on to the news and try to cheer ourselves up with some news? Because the news is always good.
It's always so bright and cheery.
It's always the thing we need to get us out of a bad mood.
Here's one thing that I saw today while doing research, and this was actually from Adam the Woo's video. At his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, somebody had a bouquet of flowers, and it said, today's secret word is thank you. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you know what's not cool?
What's that?
The Beetlejuice 2 set. Robbed again.
Did you take another road trip to Vermont in your fucking moving truck?
This time it wasn't me. They went for the windows,
Oh, no.
Scott. They went for the windows of the house. That's what I read.
The windows? They just took the fucking windows out of the structure?
They're just ransacking his poor house. They built this house for the movie. Like, isn't there somebody there watching it?
They're on strike.
Oh, they must be. Holy! Remember we joked last time? We said maybe to make some extra money, the people on strike ought to go and like get props for movie set. Like, I think they
Start
might have
hawking
listened.
shit.
I can't believe it. It got fucking ransacked again.
I read it was 3 times. So like we know that the big sculpture was the first time. And then there was windows. And I hear it happened like a 3rd time. So I don't know if they just keep going back. Like, who robs the same bank twice, you know?
All I know is it made me happy when I read it. I'm such a fucking creep. I laughed my ass off.
I read that story and I was like, oh, this is going to Bill. I forwarded it right over.
I was just like, oh my God, again. Oh, man. Well, we talked about Secret Invasion, so I'll pass that. How about that new Aquaman movie? Have you heard? It's not going very well.
Jason Momoa?
Yeah, he's in a new Aquaman movie that's filming now, and it's on its 3rd set of reshoots.
Is this part of the James Gunn universe, or is this... It has to be. It's only being made right now, and everything from Shazam 2 forward is James Gunn, right?
Well, good question. So we reference it in this write-up. Let me read. The article reports that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has undergone a 3rd set of reshoots, an almost unprecedented amount for a movie of its scale. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom finished principal photography in January 2022. 2022.
What?
But has since undergone 3 sets of reshoots. The first 2 were between the summers of 2022 and the beginning of 2023 after uninspiring test screenings, in quotes. The 3rd set was in June 2023 in New Zealand, lasting 4 days. According to the Hollywood Reporter's Boris Kit, I don't know what that is. Is that a name, Boris Kit? Is that a section of the paper? The issue of the story clarity has been an ongoing concern, though the exact problem with the film are unclear. So the story's a mess. Story's a fucking mess. Director James Wan explained that he had to make adjustments to adapt to the new leadership at DC Studios and their vision for the future of the DC universe. He noted the challenges of keeping track of the different versions of the DCU and the need to be mindful of what's been happening in the broader universe. Despite the adjustments, Wan emphasized that the Aquaman universe is far removed from the rest of the world, allowing him to tell a story without being too affected by the other movies and the other characters. Wan also shared that the new film will be quite different from the first Aquaman movie in terms of tone, dealing with issues like climate change while still being a fun action fantasy movie. We're going to handle...
Oh, boy.
We're going to tackle climate change and be fun. Yes. Can't wait.
Oh, man. I mean... So this is the one that still had an Amber Heard. This is the one that was filmed 2022. The Johnny Depp Amber Heard trials going on. They cut her completely out of it, I believe. And now they're just doing reshoots.
Yeah, trying to get the movie tight. I guess when they cut her out, maybe they really fucking butchered the movie.
Yeah.
They need Kevin Feige to come in and fix this thing every day.
That was supposed to be Gunn. And now they're doing all these... I mean, you can't shine a turd. Now we're taking on climate change. And here's a hot take for you. I like turtles.
I like turtles,
but not as much as I hate fucking paper straws.
What? All right, I think I know what you mean.
They're always like, we're not going to give you a straw. We're going to give you this paper straw because plastic straws get into the water supply and they kill the turtles. Yeah, I like turtles, but I like drinking my drink and not having a mouthful of fucking mush.
I get splinters from those. More on the G.I. Joe and Transformers thing.
Oh, yeah?
So at the end of... spoiler, everybody. Spoiler. At the end of the Transformers Rise of the Beasts, the human hero Noah, played by Anthony Ramos, is recruited by the G.I. Joes, hinting at a future collaboration between the Autobots and the G.I. Joes. We talked about that, I think, 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura. That's a fun name to say. Bonaventura. I want to be Bill Bonaventura.
Is it D Bonaventura or is D a middle initial?
D-I space. I always like a last name that's got a space. D-I space Bonaventura. Confirmed that the tease is definitely a promise for the next movie. While the script has not been developed, he stated the G.I. Joes would be part of the group fighting the bad guys. D. Bonaventura addressed continuity concerns, noting that Rise of the Beast takes place in 1994, and the first Michael Bay Transformers movie is set in 2007, giving them 13 years for the Joes and the Autobots to run together in secret. So he also said that it's not that they're going to make another movie with G.I. Joe. G.I. Joes are coming into the Transformers series.
All right. Could be good. Couldn't be any worse.
Got to admit, I'm kind of intrigued.
Sure.
Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse has been indefinitely delayed. We were saying a couple of weeks ago, we're like, there's no way this movie's going to make it. They got a year and they got to film make this entire thing. Well, now the damn SAG strike and the after strike and all the strikes.
Sure.
Have put it on ice. Along with Kraven the Hunter, right? I just saw the trailer for that. Looks like dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
The Ghostbusters sequel. Yeah, everything's just fun. Let's get some reality TV going again. Come on, guys. Come on.
No. Let's start listening to podcasts.
I like that better.
And buying Liquid IV.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget, if you go to liquidiv.com and use your code TooMuchCGI, you can get 20% off your Liquid IV. I know you drink it. Everybody drinks it. Evidently, every podcast advertises it. But don't buy it from them. Buy it from us. Go to TooMuchCGI.com. Go to TooMuchCGI.com and then go to liquidiv.com and use keyword TooMuchCGI. Well, we do appreciate it. We will put those dollars directly into the software we're using. We're using new software today. We like it a lot better. So we appreciate you guys buying all that stuff because it pays our bills.
Thank you.
Seriously. Thank you. We mean it. I'm usually sarcastic as fuck, but that was a real thank you. Excited for the Lando series.
Oh, this is one that's being written by Donald Glover, which I read the story that he was writing it, and I thought they just put all the Star Wars stuff on ice, and now he's writing a whole series. It was surprising.
What about that other Spider-Man thing, the Hypno Hustler? Is he still making that?
Oh, the Hypno Hustler. Goddamn, I hope so.
Oh, man. We need the Hypno Hustler.
I think the Hypno Hustler writes itself. Lando needs some work, but the Hypno Hustler, it's right there for the taking.
I'd pay to just have somebody say the Hypno Hustler to me. Just say the word. I'm that entertained by the name. Donald Glover is officially returning as Lando Calrissian for the Disney Plus Star Wars series Lando. Glover will not only star as Lando, but will also co-write the series with his brother Steven Glover. Do we know Steven Glover? Is he from something?
Not that I know of, no.
Nepotism. Justin Smelian, the director of The Haunted Mansion. Hey, I told you he was coming back up.
Simeon. Justin Simeon.
Simeon. What did I say? Schmelian?
Smelian? Shamil. Shamazel. For Pfeffer Incorporated.
The director of The Haunted Mansion, who was originally attached to the project, has left. Lucasfilm reached out to Glover, who pitched the idea that the company loved. There's no specific information on how far along the development of writing is, but this announcement marks the first actual news about the series in several years. Thought you'd like that. I like that.
I do. I liked the Solo story, even though it had a mess of a creation, multiple directors, multiple writers, but I liked it for what it was, and I really liked him as a young Lando Calrissian. And for people that know Star Wars Legends books, Lando had a lot of pretty wild adventures in the novels. So I hope they use some of that as inspiration for these stories.
He was a real cocksman, I hear. And he liked his Colt 45.
He sure did.
Remember those commercials?
Billy D. Williams talks about the power of Colt 45.
You know, I've always heard about the power of Colt 45.
All right, one more news story. It's been very Transformers and Marvel and Star Wars heavy today. And Pee-wee. Don't forget Pee-wee, of course.
Pee-wee. Trumps them all.
The upcoming Star Wars show, The Acolyte, is being framed as a direct response to fan complaints during the Disney era of the franchise. The show's stars, including Manny Jacinto, Daphne Keene, and Charlie Barnett, have teased that The Acolyte is a response to what fans have been calling for, including more aliens, Jedis, tangible worlds, and a return to practical sets. And I think you may not love that because you're done with these parts of Star Wars, right? See, to me, this sounded good, but as soon as I read it, I said, oh, this is the stuff that Scott's tired of. Am I right?
I don't know. I mean, I guess my question is, are these Jedi that they're going to go back to, were they all trained by Luke Skywalker? Are they going to be somehow related to him? Or are they just going to be Jedi that exist in the universe that survived Order 66 and they're just out there in some other distant part fighting their own battles? Because if it's the same time frame, I'm okay with that. If they have to tie back to Luke and Anakin and everybody we already know, I don't need that. I'm cool with Jedi. I'm very cool with practical sets, as we all know. I'm on a fucking show called Too Much CGI, but it doesn't have to tie back to the Skywalkers. That's all I'm done with the Skywalkers.
Yeah, I think it's new chapters. Maybe it's similar sets, similar sort of characters, but new chapters in the story. So this is what you wanted.
And the reason why I want this is because the more they connect things back to the Skywalkers, the more they can possibly tarnish the Skywalker legacy and the Skywalker story. And as I shared a couple episodes ago, yes, live in this world, play in this world. Don't have to connect to these characters that are so beloved by many.
Set to release in 2024, the show will take place near the end of the High Republic era, approximately 100 years before The Phantom Menace. It will explore unseen chapters of the Jedi Order's history and feature battles between Jedi and Sith, including a Wookiee Jedi named Kelnaka. Showrunner Leslie Headland, a self-proclaimed Star Wars fan, is aiming to create a show that offers what fans have been asking for. The show is being described as a gift to fans made by true Star Wars enthusiasts. Unlike other recent Star Wars shows that have relied on digital technology to create worlds and backgrounds, The Acolyte promises more tangible settings similar to the approach taken in the show Andor. And I liked Andor. For me, I was like, I hate Andor after 2 episodes. But then once I got to that 3rd episode, that whole show exploded and became my favorite Disney thing so far.
Yeah, the story was slow, but the filmography, that was incredible. I mean, the filming locations, the photography, that was very artfully done, very much done on set, on location. It was not a set. It was done on location.
I thought I was watching some lost footage from 1977. No lie. Like, it looked legit.
It was visually stunning. Yeah, it was incredible. So, yeah, that'd be cool. I'm interested in seeing what Sith they come up with. There was a Wookiee Jedi in Rebels. He was a youngling at the time, but yeah, I'm cool with that.
Well, that was our last news item, Scott. We're all done. The show's over.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like a downer today. I feel like I wasn't myself. This Paul Reubens thing got me down.
Me too.
Anything uplifting that you could maybe play us out with here that might make us think fondly of the man, miss him a bit, but still be happy?
I think I got just the thing.
You know what? This song definitely fits the bill, man.
Perfect.
You are great at taking requests.
I was a DJ in a past life. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be in a better mood next time as long as no more of our heroes die. Scott, are there any final thoughts?
No, I mean, as sad as it is that he passed, it was great to kind of do a deep dive here. Hopefully everybody out there learned something new. And, yeah, really appreciate the man for the artist that he was, the character he created. And, yeah, man, we lost a real one. When they pulled the body from the wreckage, it looked like this.